Ladies and gentlemen, go for our wild, wild ride with the Honey Badgers. But beware, the sweetest kittens have the sharpest claws. For your own safety, strap yourself in and hold onto something as we enter the Pussycat Cast. Taboo topics.
Wait a second. Men are human too.
Marginalized men. Uncomfortable truths.
You suck!
The Pussycats aren't afraid of heavy lifting.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Pussycat Cast with Pussycat Cast number 5. Feminists let you grab them by the pussy. This week, our verbal Valkyries are Anna's Porn is for Geniuses 2 Cherry, who believes that gray matter matters. Leading lady of loving and celebrating being, Crystal Garcia, and the pickle in this really small clam bake, myself, the Supreme Doge in charge. Special thanks to the CAA. Thanks for tuning in and making sure that we are above board. Let us go into the topics. So we're going to start with the stories. We have 4, thanks to Crystal, who added 1, which was extra hilarious. Actually, we're going to open up with that one. All right, so there is a new feminist T-shirt. You know that feminists are big on virtue signaling through making you buy stuff so that you can let the world know that you have spent money on a product. This is a $710 T-shirt that reads, "We should all be feminists," and it just sold out online. $710 for a T-shirt. This shirt is white, and in black type, it reads, "We should all be feminists," in all caps. It is not made out of gold. It doesn't actually have the ability to glow in the dark. It's not bulletproof. It doesn't do anything special. So,
question?
Yes.
Where do the proceeds go?
Well, that's good. That's a good question. So let's take a look. I'll read the article. This is from Yahoo Style. When the "We Should All Be Feminist" T-shirt came down the runway as part of Maria Grazia Chiuri's first ever Dwar runway show, it kicked up quite a bit of noise. Actually, I didn't hear anything about it, but Chiuri was the first female creative director of the house and was calling for a bit of a revolution. Since then, the brand's ambassadors have turned up everywhere in the piece. Now, only days after the piece went on pre-sale, it has sold out. Retailing for a whopping $710, the piece was originally available only at Saks Fifth Avenue and in Dwar boutiques. Saks even got an exclusive version of the design in black that it is offering at the same price. That option is still available. But with that premium price point, the piece is again, understandably, causing quite a bit of conversation online. "I can't afford to be a feminist," Twitter user B-Boy Gregory posted. And here are some of the tweets where, again, someone named B-Boy Gregory, or B-Boy Gregory writes, "I can't afford to be a feminist." Someone named David tweeted, "This brand of feminism is expensive." Others joined the conversation to offer similar thoughts. "This brand of feminism is expensive," wrote Master David P. "I can't afford to be a feminist, got student loans to pay back." "Is Dwar for real?" Emil Yakar asked, saying in the reference to the feminist writer who first used the phrase in the title of her book. "And I hope all these brands are cutting checks to Chiamanda." Presumably, this is what inspired Chiuri after Beyonce sampled the Chiamanda speech on her self-titled album. The comments do have a point. Albert Samuels, a senior merchandiser for the Basics brand alternative apparel, told Maxim that a tee over $60 is overpriced. I'd say if it's over $20, it's probably pushing it. Sure, it's Dwar, so there is to be some markup expected, but $700 is quite expensive. For what it's worth, a portion of those fat profits will go to charity. Rihanna's charity, to be specific. In a deal announced in February, Dwar has teamed up with Rihanna's Clara Lionel Foundation to benefit impoverished areas around the world. No announcement has been made about how much of these proceeds will go to charity, but one would hope it's a healthy amount. And there's a photo of Rihanna wearing the shirt. If you've got it to spend, you can drop your stacks on the Saks Fifth Avenue exclusive or get the original design at Dwar boutiques. Now, that's the end of the article. Crystal said that people asked about how much of the proceeds were going to be going to the charity, and at this time, there is no answer as to what the actual percentage is.
Right. There's no response. They would need to get back to them. Which just leaves it very shady. Like, what is going on? I mean, normally people would just say right up front, okay, you're going to spend a ridiculous amount, $710. You would think that a vast amount is going to something incredible. But that does not seem to be upfront in this conversation.
Well, I will have to add to that is probably why it's not a huge amount, if it is at all any of it going to a charity. I mean, I'm sure it is, but like, okay, 10% maybe. You did drop some words, some keywords such as Saks Fifth Avenue and boutique, boutique and fashion show, and all of these things is, you know how women or feminists or all of them, that group of people who talk about male gaze and such, you know how they say that the society or the fashion industry or the television or whatever makes them feel like they're not skinny enough, et cetera, et cetera. What they're talking about is the fashion industry, which is run by gay guys and skinny, cruel women that are old and cruel. So I'm not really sure what is going on here, but we kind of know by now that fashion industry is the devil. They make money off of pretense, and you did see Kanye's fashion line, right? And I use the word fashion extremely liberal.
Yeah, right.
But when you have a celebrity, especially a hip hop, which is like,
wait, is the
cool.
Kanye fashion line the stuff where he's like dressed like something out of a Final Fantasy game? Like the crazy coats that are asymmetrical and all that weird shit that he was wearing? Or is that just his clothes?
That might be just his clothes, but his fashion line is all like beiges and browns, and it looks like stocking caps and just like, it's like bum clothes. Like homeless people dug it out of all the rejects at an Asian factory somewhere, like for Gap. It's bad. But no, fashion in general, it makes its money off of the name. And, you know, we have Rihanna, which, by the way, apparently that's how you pronounce her name. It's Rihanna. But yeah, she is a name, and you're associating her with the thing to sell the things. And it's just another example, another proof of feminism being used as a fashion statement, like Beyonce's feminist, you know, billboard thing behind her. It's a cool thing to do, and it makes money. Basically, what I'm getting at, it's just to make money, people. It's an ideology that makes other people money, and you're being taken for fools.
Money and power. And so it tries to get it through multiple ways. I also think what you're paying for is the fact that Maria Grazia Chiuri made it. She is a Italian fashion designer, worked for Valentino. It's a white T-shirt it's a white T-shirt. But because she designed it... Yeah, it's a white tee, but because she made it, or designed it. I don't even. How do you design a T-shirt? But she did. She was involved with it.
She chose the font, Brian. Yeah. She chose the font and the cut of the shirt. You know, you could have like a. I wish I knew the words for it, but there's like 3 different kinds of white T-shirts you can have.
Yes.
You could have a V-neck.
A V-neck.
You could have long sleeves.
Yeah. There's also the baseball cut, and then there's one that has like a wider neck opening. You know, usually the women wear that one. You know, there's like the half tee. There's the tank top.
Yeah, the boat neck, the V-neck, the baseball. So that we're already up to 5. Come on, that's a lot of choices, Brian.
And even the wording.
And it comes in black. You can get it black or white.
Wording that's on there. We should all be feminists. There's nothing empowering about that. There's no freedom in that conversation. It's all, you should be like me because I know it all, and I'm clearly know what I'm talking about, even though I completely ignore men's rights.
Well,
and shut that down every chance I get. But we should all be feminists.
I did spend $710, so I might know what I'm talking about.
But you know, if everyone's a feminist, then is no one a feminist?
Yes, exactly. I just thought this was a funny story. I mean, that this is basically, you know, to Anna Cherry's point, this is basically something made by rich, affluent people for other rich, affluent people to pay for. Because I honestly don't think that any normal person that has bills to pay and, you know, rent and mortgages has $710 for a fucking shirt. I mean, you can actually steal this design and get it printed yourself at Redbubble or something for like $30 tops. So, not that I'm advocating that, but just saying, you have the option. All right.
I really hope that was a troll. It would make me so happy that it was a troll.
That
it's
would
like,
be funny.
You know what?
That would be funny. I want to see celebrities. I want to see celebrities buy this shirt, and then because they sold out, so enough people bought it. And for some reason,
makes t-shirts.
Yeah, and for some reason, Maria Grazia, who made the shirt, she only made a limited number because she, like, seriously, a white T-shirt that just has something screen printed onto it. They've run out of that shirt. What?
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah,
it's
a scarcity
my
thing.
manufactured scarcity.
Yeah. It's phony as fuck. All right.
Hurry and get it, or you may miss out on this white tee that you can print yourself for $12 on Teespring. I'm just saying, you could do that.
It's pretty funny. All right, let's move on to the next story. The Independent has an article entitled, "Rape Victims Will No Longer Face Cross-Examination in Court with Testimony to be Filmed Instead. Attitudes to sex crimes and victims have changed beyond all recognition in our lifetime," says Justice Secretary Liz Truss. Hopefully I'm not butchering her last name. Rape victims will be spared of the ordeal of giving evidence in court under reforms being brought forward by the government. This is in the UK, by the way. Justice Secretary Elizabeth Truss said that from September, their cross-examination will be pre-recorded and then played to a jury during the trial. The rollout of the scheme was originally not scheduled to start until the beginning of next year, but has been brought forward following an agreement with senior judges. Attitudes to sex crimes and victims have changed beyond all recognition in our lifetime, and rape prosecutions are now at record levels, Ms. Truss said. With more victims now finding the confidence to come forward, I am determined to make their path to justice swifter and less traumatic. Also, fuck due process. This will not reduce the right to a fair trial, but will make sure victims of these abhorrent crimes are protected and able to provide their best possible evidence. The Ministry of Justice said that the move followed a successful pilot re-recording the evidence of child victims of sex offenses, which showed that they felt less pressure and were better able to recall events. Ms. Truss also announced a crackdown on pedophiles who use social media to groom child victims online. A new offense of sexual communication with a child, which comes into force next month, will carry a maximum 2-year prison sentence, with those convicted automatically being placed on the sex offenders register. In a world of mobile phones and social media, our children are ever more vulnerable to those who prey on their innocence and exploit their trust, Ms. Truss said. This new offense will help us tackle the early stages of grooming and nip in the bud those targeting children online or through text messages. So that's the article. Now, while the article does end on the note of talking about how better to essentially crack down on pedophiles, there's an interesting sleight of hand that happens here, where they begin this thing by talking about all rape victims are being spared the ordeal of giving any evidence in court by pre-recording their statements, right? So essentially, what will happen is they will record their side, and then a lawyer protecting the accused will not be able to cross-examine them because they won't show up. They'll just play the recording and they'll use that. Now,
I was about to ask, what is so far? I'm not hearing anything wrong with this. But now, here we go.
Yeah. Because
now we're going.
If you're talking about when you're talking about kids and pedophilia, this is like something that's
a little different.
I'm not really sure what the best way to approach that would be in terms of dealing with that in court. I know that we have other ways to do that. So I'm not going to go there because I don't know that the image of a defense lawyer essentially cross-examining a child and forcing them to change their story so that they can protect their defendant despite whether or not the defendant did anything. is something that I don't think we can talk about easily, because I think that there is a lot of complication there. But women, rape victims who are female, because let's face it, this is for them, not for rape victims who are male in the cases where they're even considered to be rape victims. But women are not children. So if a woman falsely accuses a man, under the UK, this thing that they're talking about doing in the UK, a woman just needs to record her testimony, and then they just play it. She doesn't have to go to court, and her identity is protected, because I don't know if you know, but in general, when there is a rape case, the rapist's identity is revealed, or the person accused of rape, his identity is revealed, or her identity, but the victim, their identity is protected and not revealed. So this is in most cases, if not all. This is just how they do things. So you have a woman who is making an accusation in the case of a false accusation. She's making a false accusation against a man. She doesn't have to reveal her identity, and she doesn't even have to show up. This is reminiscent of what happened to Mark Pearson. I don't know if you guys know about Mark Pearson, but he was a guy. He's been on our show. He was at the ICMI in London last year, and he was accused of sexually assaulting a woman at the train station. And the woman was actually an actress. She was in Game of Thrones. She played the shaman or the witch or whatever that ended up getting Khal Drogo killed in the first season.
So an older...
Yeah, older woman. She was the one that accused him. And he didn't do anything. Like, it was essentially the story she was cooking up was impossible. Like, he would have to somehow, with super speed, move past her, finger her for several seconds, and then run off. And they actually had, like, because they have cameras on the train station, so they showed nothing happened. He passed her by, and that was it. But for whatever reason, she accused him. And when he went to court to, deal with this accusation, she was actually kept from being seen. It's like, so she showed up, but she was behind like a veil or like a curtain or something, so you couldn't see her face, and she was basically doing her testimony hidden from view from Mark Pearson and everyone in the courtroom. So, and her identity was protected on top of that. We only learned who she was after everything was over and done with, and Mark Pearson was able to talk about it. And even then, there were some issues that he was basically like worried. He can't talk about her in the UK forever. He can't bring up her name or anything. But we can, because we're in the US. So this is basically where we're at. And now they're talking about doing it to where they're just pre-recording it, and people don't even have to show up. So I don't know if you guys have anything you want to say to that, or if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, that's to me, that sounds absolutely dangerous, because you pre-record something like that, someone can be rehearsed, and you can take as many takes as possible to rehearse something, or to, it doesn't sound right. And we're definitely, I doubt that they're going to be doing this for male victims as well. We're still having the conversation about, women who rape men, about that being recognized. So this just all it doesn't sound kosher. It sounds really dangerous, and I'm really concerned about it, because the fact is that there are people who make false allegations towards men. There are men who spent decades in prison for things that they haven't done, or many years. I mean, their lives, their careers completely ruined because of false rape accusations. And I think this sets a really dangerous precedent for that. So I'm pretty concerned, and I think it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'd like to back that up, especially what Crystal mentioned. I mean, I'm not all for the justice system in the slightest. It's an injustice system in America. We don't even have to watch Making a Murderer to know that. I mean, it's kind of a silly thing, but it's true and accurate, and it happens, and we all know that. Whatever, who cares? Lawyers are, like that joke about all the jokes about lawyers. They're pretty much all true. There's a reason why the only badass lawyer type person that I've ever met is actually fucking disbarred, and is a what is he? What is Harry Capito? He's the only person I've met, and I have met lawyers who actually is there for the justice, for the Magna Carta, for rights of people, instead of making money. That being said, It's a very valid point that Crystal brought up that, as evil as cross-examinations could be, in the sense that leading the witness, et cetera, there is an important element to actually be able to cross-examine someone. There's a reason it exists in its ideal form. It is a way to try to get at the truth of person's recollection, of their truthfulness, of all of that. And eyewitness testimonies, et cetera, are notoriously unreliable. We know Loftus and a bunch of other studies have done that, and studies on children who have gone to, hypnotists or whatever, or to therapists, and suddenly they uncover incest trauma and all the stuff that, wasn't actually there. They were led to believe that something happened that didn't actually. And of course, the famous Loftus type experiments where if you ask, did you see the flashlight versus did you see a flashlight, just that one simple change can influence how a person remembered something. Memory is shit, okay? And eyewitness testimony doubly so. However, there's a reason it exists in its, like I said, ideal form. We should be able to try to get at the truth by cross-examining someone, and also try to see if they were led, like Crystal was saying, like that maybe their lawyer was, prompting them, or, who knows what the circumstances were of that recording. And that's why it's important to do it live and to do it in that sense. And I think if people can testify about seeing a brutal murder around them or on them or whatever, somehow in their immediate vicinity, if they were an eyewitness and up close to a brutal fucking OJ level murder, I'm thinking they should be able to talk about their rape, because it's not fucking worse, people. It's not worse. Sorry. There may be actually, I don't even know if there's a longer impact of something like a rape where, my privates were violated and my autonomy and my bodily integrity feels like it's been taken away from me. Yeah, you probably have even worse PTSD than that when somebody try to kill you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, in fact, I know I've had friends who have been ambushed and just being pistol whipped and having to get some stitches after being mugged. That is fucking traumatizing as shit. So, I think if people can talk about those things, you should be able to talk about a rape, especially since a lot of these cases happen as a quote unquote date rape. So it's not some stranger accosting you somewhere in a dark alley with a fucking gun. It's a lot more, I don't know what the right word to use without, making people who suffered feel like I don't care about their suffering, but right. There is a level, there's a hierarchy.
It's like severe, it's more severe is what you're saying, right?
Severe, that's the word, yeah, intense, severe, whatever, right, exactly, yeah. I just don't think it's equivalent at all. And if people can talk about attempted murder on their person, or mugging or whatever, where they had PTSD as a result of it, I think you should be able to talk about your date rape and just go through the trauma, especially since, as a neuropsychologist, I will tell you that the best way to deal with PTSD, there is a process that you can deal with it. And sure, it involves some things in addition to cognitive behavior therapy, but a big part of it is talking it through to the point where you disassociate your emotions, your strong physical emotional response, with those memories. And cannabinoids help with that a lot. So that's the process, cannabinoids and talk therapy at the same time. However, talk therapy is a big part of it. You kind of, that's kind of what we talked about with the Nazi thing and PewDiePie and whatever else, where the idea is if you want to give Nazis more power, be more afraid of that word. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? I'm referencing something complex and can't find the words for it. But basically, if we want to delegitimize Nazis, if we want to make it less scary, we should make fun of them. We should use that word with levity. We should throw it out we should fucking have Springtime for Hitler every night on TV. Just basically, the idea is you give it more power, the more sacred you hold a certain word or event. Yeah, so
it's like you treat it like Satan, and of course you become really afraid of it. It's like, it's like Voldemort, you're
shall not be spoken.
Yes, he who shall not be named. So yes, I certainly agree with taking the power out of something by using it more commonly.
And that works on a neuroscience level.
Yes.
With, you know, their whole idea is, okay, we don't want them to go through the trauma of reliving okay, well then what about attempted murder victims, or, you know, muggings that ended up with, or, you know, that one guy who tried to give people some money to spot their dinner at a fast food restaurant, and 4 of them fucking beat him up. He was a disabled man offering people some money, and he got fucking beat up to the point of needing stitches, etc., and rehabilitation therapy to walk. Okay, that fucking happens, and that is a little more severe than your boyfriend or your husband touching you after you said no, I don't wanna, or you woke up to a hand in your pants. Okay.
For me, it's not really a conversation of like which is worse or which is better, or a hierarchy of trauma. I think everybody is traumatized. For me, it's more a conversation of making sure that the justice system stays with justice. My concern is that we're gonna see an increase of lying, of lying on the rape, and that's my concern. If we're gonna have these videos that we don't know how they could be, how it could be manipulated, that's more my concern, because that's just, I don't know, I find it a very slippery slope. And then what would that lead to next? Okay, now we don't even talk to them. Now we just assume. As it is, we pretty much do that. We assume guilty. When we hear a rape case, people are so outraged that they assume guilty if it's a man who raped a woman. And how it stands in our society, we assume innocent or something's wrong with the guy if he says that a woman raped him. So we're still dealing with that dynamic as it stands. So that's more my concern.
Oh yeah. I think that, to Anna's point, our legal system, our justice system, this is in the UK, so I can't speak for them. This is actually happening in the UK, but I'm assuming that there's probably some parallels across the board. Our justice system isn't perfect. You could see that with things like rape cases that, where people are wrongfully imprisoned and it doesn't come out until much later, or even until they get out of prison. If they do, and it doesn't change the fact that they're scarred for life, not only having been in prison, but the stuff follows you in your world, in your real life afterwards. Like, you can't find a job because you were an ex-convict, or you're on the sex offender list even if it turns out you were innocent of anything. You can't really get off of the list very easily, if at all. And then, of course, there's like the family courts and all that. So there certainly are problems. However, our justice system is probably the best thing we have right now, but we certainly should challenge it, criticize it as often as possible to try to make it better. And seeing this happening in the UK and talking about it here and now is our way of saying, don't bring that shit over here to the US, because we don't want that. We need due process. This is ridiculous. And I wonder how long this will stand. How many innocent men will go to prison before they change it? And my guess is it probably won't happen until a woman goes to prison. That's what my guess is. But
yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah,
because I mean, where I was coming from is entirely to cut down their impetus for this whole law, nip it in the bud, because the idea is, well, women are just too traumatized, to talk about their rape, and it's like, well, you're starting off a bad premise.
Yes,
is what I was trying to get at. Certainly not minimizing anyone's trauma, God forbid, but if that's what they're going to use as an excuse for removal of due process, I'm going to have to call bullshit on that. But also, I mean, it's hard because like laws constantly change to the point to accommodate people. So due process is not necessarily a thing set in stone. It is changing based on people's feels, more or less. And I think maybe it's valid to talk about it from that perspective. But at the same time, you're right, Brian. It will not change until a woman's on the receiving end. In fact, I've been enjoying some Twilight Zone. A few episodes before bedtime. It's quite fantastic. And an episode I just watched that had Dean Stockwell as a young child boy, and it was the war of Japan versus America. Well, Americans, I guess, versus Japan, and it starts off with him being a young soldier or young lieutenant who's there ordering his battle-fatigued men who have seen enough killing to last a lifetime, ordering them to basically go after 20 or 30 wounded Japs, as they're calling them, in a cave, and just to finish them out. finish them off. And the lieutenant literally showed up. It's the last day of the war. He showed up on his first day there, and he's ordering these guys to go in and kill him instead of bypassing. And the soldiers don't want to do it. They know better. And then twist of fate, as is in Twilight Zone, he ends up somehow being on the Japanese side. And it's 3 years earlier, they're just starting the bombing, and it's Japanese that are standing on the hill above a cave in which 20 or 30 Americans are hiding, and they're wounded.
Mhm.
And this lieutenant says, who's now not a lieutenant, he's one of those soldiers that he was making fun of just earlier for being cowards or whatnot. He's the one being told to march in there and kill these wounded instead of bypassing them. And his own words are echoed back to him that they're the enemy. Every last one of them has to die because they're the enemy. Well, that's the whole point, is the golden rule, people. It's a thing that we rarely think about. We are so happy and eager to mete out punishment when it's the other. And we never stop for a fucking second to think that, what if this rule, this law, was applied to me? What if I was on the receiving end? How just is it now? So until we have a woman who is women being called for a draft, or girls getting genitally mutilated, or whatever the fuck. And even then, obviously, they don't care about boys, because we haven't driven that point home enough. But you get what I'm saying.
No, yeah, that's the funny thing, is that when they were talking about including women in the draft, all of a sudden all the feminists are coming out. They're like, you know what? Why don't we just get rid of the draft, though? I mean, it's kind of like
so conservative. Like, it's just so Republican.
I mean, I don't know. I don't like the draft. I mean, look, a bunch of guys started dying too, Like, they all of a sudden they're against the draft. Yeah, it hurts men. The draft is bad, guys.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised how many were like, well, I was going to vote Hillary, but you know what? Trump, I think I'll go Trump now.
All right, so this is kind of a dark topic. I hope it doesn't lead to more stories that we have to read about where men are being falsely accused and put in the prison system because they aren't even allowed a real defense, which is what a cross-examination is in part. So, good on you, UK. Still winning. Let's move on to the next story and get a little bit lighter hearted. Okay, so this one comes from allure.com, so you know that we have to take it really seriously. Hashtag read my lips. Proof the president's grabbing by the pussy comments haven't been forgotten. By Michaela McKenzie. It's been a few months. We gotta remember it. Okay. It all started with a leaked audio tape. Since Donald Trump's grabbed them by the pussy, Since Donald grabbed them by the pussy, Trump took the Oval Office this January, women's rights issues have become front and center in the national conversation. To make that conversation impossible for President Trump to ignore, a group of women is delivering the message to him in a package sure to grab his attention. A giant vagina. Spearheaded by Mogul, a platform for women to connect and share, the hashtag Read My Lips campaign invites women from around the world to voice their concerns about women's rights issues, including access to health care and resources for survivors of sexual assault, by sending messages directly to the White House. To get the administration's attention, hashtag Read My Lips won't be sending their message in your standard envelope. Instead, they will be commissioning artist and Saturday Night Live prop fabricator Dan Castelli, a man, to create a special sculpture, a classy as hell vagina. Very Georgia O'Keeffe. I wonder if, this is just a jab, I know this is really lowballing it, and I'm cruel for saying this, but I wonder if Dan Castelli has seen a vagina. He needs something to model it after. No, but by having the statue as this shape, it empowers women to be proud of their sexuality and bodies, said Michelle Wen, the Cornell organizer, in a statement about the project. Women have nothing to hide. We only have our determination, spirit, and the strong minds to be proud of. Hashtag Read My Lips began as a grassroots initiative on college campuses, including Cornell, Yale, NYU, Brown, Georgetown, and Oxford. Students passionate about holding their government accountable to the right of its people began sharing their messages on Mogul and inspired by the budding movement. Mogul minted hashtag Read My Lips, collecting millions of letters, poems, songs, and messages to deliver right to Trump's doorstep. I'm not done with the article, but if you want to say something now, but there's only one more paragraph. Let me just go ahead and read that. The hashtag Read My Lips campaign is hugely important. It's bigly important. Not just in representing women across America, but in representing women across the world. Oxford organizer Sasha Skovron said in a statement, "Through this movement, we can send a message loud and clear. Nobody has the right to deny a woman the freedom to make decisions over her own body. President Trump poses a great threat to this freedom, and so whether an American citizen or not, hashtag Read My Lips stands for women everywhere." So I don't care whether you feel like it doesn't stand for you or not. It does, because you're a woman. The hashtag Read My Lips messages Mogul receives will be printed out as letters and placed inside the sculpture, which will be delivered to the White House on April 21st. To add your voice to the vagina, submit your story on Mogul.com now. Oh no, this is inviting problems. All right, so that's the end of the article.
You keep saying Mogul, and I'm just like,
Mogul, as in media mogul.
Yeah. I'm a fangirl. I can't help it.
Oh no, I hear you.
I haven't played Boy Band Road Trip though, and I refuse. But that's okay. Go ahead.
No, that's the end of the article. So if it arrives at his doorstep and he picks it up from the White House, is he grabbing him by the pussy? And if it's like everyone in the world, does he just grab all of it at once? See, when
That's so weird. Like,
when you're rich and powerful, they let you do it.
That hashtag makes me want to vomit. Like, I gag every time I'm like, ugh, and yeah, no, that photo, oh God. And then so I just, it's so interesting that women need to tell feminists, hey, we're not just our genitalia. Because what they've done, they've completely minimized women to genitalia. But they're objectifying women by creating this huge vagina, or, whatever.
It's a vagina.
Gathering.
It's empowering when feminists do it, don't you know?
Oh, yeah. It's like, look, you have one. Okay, congratulations. Like, they want, I don't know what it is. What is this self-obsession? It's really self-obsessed. And then they say, it's for all women. You don't speak for me. I watched the video, and the woman keeps saying, we just wanted to make it classy, 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 classy. There is nothing classy about this. If you wanted to be classy, you would have never even created this. There's nothing classy about a giant purple, I think it's purple even? I don't know why.
Let me scroll down. I believe it's lavender.
Lavender.
It's a lavender
I don't
vagina.
even know. What is that? It's like,
because
there's
pink-
something.
It's a blue waffle.
Oh,
Because
no.
pink is too sexist.
Oh, Brian, you had to go there. Yeah.
Well, they're just trying to allude to a bruised and battered vagina because, women have just had enough of being grabbed by the vagina. That's why it's purple. It's, either that or just hasn't been fucked in so long. It's got like blue balls like on the vagina. One or the other.
I think the reason could be, to be honest, that if they pick a color, because like they got to put like I think there's like a skin part of it that's around the actual vajayjay, right? And so if you're going to be inclusive of every woman in the world, you can't actually give it a skin tone, otherwise you'll be racist because you'll be excluding somebody.
Because that's sexist to make it. No, it's absolutely pink and blue together to make it purple because it's they're just like for equality and shit.
Because colors, pink is not necessarily a female color, you shitlord, and neither is blue. So yeah, that's all I can figure.
This is so ridiculous. This is not the first time that feminism objectifies women to push their agenda. For the Slut Walk, I have a really big problem with the Slut Walk. It just annoys the hell out of me. For one, it's okay, fine, it objectifies women, and on top of that, it completely ignores male rape victims, because their whole point, they say, is to bring awareness about rape. But then their whole conversation is women can wear whatever they want and they don't deserve to be raped. First of all, that's not even a conversation. Everybody knows that. This is just ridiculous. They just create these things just to say what they heard a few people say this. They heard a few disturbed individuals say that. I don't know. But then they're telling women to weaponize their bodies. Mm-hmm. Now now they've diminished women to our genitalia while they're objectifying women and telling Trump, don't objectify us, we'll do it for you. And then we'll send you a bunch of mail. This is just so ridiculous and disgusting. And under the post, I went to their Facebook page.
Yeah.
There's a lot of women posting just outraged. They're like, we are so tired of this. You do not represent us.
So
yeah,
good.
They're like, this is disgusting. There is nothing classy about this.
Yeah.
There were posts where they were saying,
oh, Crystal, you dropped. Crystal, you dropped. Oh no, there you are. There you are. Wait.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So, someone was saying, if Hillary had won and you guys had sent her a giant penis, what would we be saying?
Yeah.
Well, like, this is completely disrespectful. This is disgusting. And stop saying it's for all of us because you don't represent us. So a lot more women are coming forward and saying, this is gross. Stop it. They're just tired of feminist antics that are objectifying women for one, which is really, I don't even know if it's ironic anymore. Feminism is its own po, really. And so then, this is just so gross.
Yeah. When you really want to be taken seriously and you really care about issues and you want to message your local, politicians or senators, congresspeople, and your president of the United States, the best thing to do is to build a gigantic plastic foam vagina, fill it with letters, and mail it. That's the best way to be taken seriously.
Right, of course. There was a woman who actually stated that if you go to Facebook and you guys find the page of this, you'll see there was a woman who actually stated that. You don't do, I forget her actual words, but it was something to the effect of, this isn't what you do if you're serious about making a difference.
Yeah.
You talk to the politicians.
No one is, but the thing is, these people, people who are participating in this, the people who came up with this idea, they will tell you, they will pay lip service to the stuff they care about. But first off, they won't actually look into it to find out how much of it is really true, because it is, in all likelihood, things are not as simple as they think it is. But more importantly than that, they don't care so much about what it is they claim to. They care more about everyone else seeing them doing something like this. Like, this is something that you want to be seen doing. This is not something that you actually give a shit about. Because if you really did, you would know everything there is to know about the issue, and you'd be able to speak to it.
Yeah, genital-based virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's pussy signaling. And look, I'm a big fan of the vagina, but I swear feminists are making me get tired of looking at it. Like, I like the a little bit of mystery, a little bit of rarity,
Sure.
So anyway, any other thoughts on hashtag read my lips other than LOL? Those are my main thoughts.
Completely grotesque. I just, how do they see this as classy? I don't even know how they warped that.
I think it's shock and awe tactics. It's like the equivalent of, this is feminist edginess, I guess. This is them being edgy. Because if you sent a giant penis to Angela Merkel, if you were in Germany and you were displeased with the things that she was doing, you were like, I'm going to send her a giant penis. I don't know why it's Trump doing this, but I'm going to send her a giant penis. Hold on, let me get a mold, And yes, we would think, first off, we think it was stupid, but then some people would be
fucking unhinged.
Would be outraged.
Unhinged.
Yeah. What is the point of that? So yeah, I don't know.
Right, nobody would take it seriously. Right, exactly like what Anna said. They would just be like, okay, you've just lost your mind. But for some reason, when feminists do this, they're like, oh, that's so fantastic. Look what they're doing. That's amazing. Why have we become, how have we devolved so much as a society that this is what's being praised, rather than the voice of women, the actual voice of women, the women who are out there as activists? If this is what feminists say they stand for women, the women who are out there as activists, who are out there for all human rights, instead of encouraging and supporting these women or making a difference for women overseas, because America, women's rights in America, we've got that. Instead of making a difference for women overseas, let's just make a giant vagina and send it to our president, who's probably not going to get it anyway, because why would he?
So, guys in the chat, there is a police siren or ambulance or something.
Oh yeah,
That's
I'm in New York City.
that's Crystal in New York City. Not here in Chicago. It's quiet. So
It's just New York, people. You know how
it's
to.
just New York.
It's fine.
I think that if we
Siren
did
is
if we did
triggering.
start mailing giant penises out, we could call it "Read My Tips." But all right, so let's move on to the next story, the last story actually. So we got through this pretty quickly. All right, so this one I got a write-up for, as the original source comes from Age of Shitlords, and I'm not saying they're fake news, but they're more like a commentary site. So, most YouTube-based social justice warriors, such as Steve Shives and others, have made it abundantly clear that they'd prefer a world where their naysayers have no way to speak back against them. After the last update to YouTube's terms of service, which has led to the mass demonetization of YouTubers who discuss controversial topics, many would say they just got what they asked for. But the sword of censorship cuts both ways. The new algorithm has affected several prominent social justice-based YouTubers who discuss LGBT issues which have demonetized their videos as well. Angry about this censorship because it has finally affected them, social justice masses have taken to Twitter to complain about YouTube's egregious actions. But isn't this the same censorship that they claim to have wanted all along? It seems that censorship to them is only a valid tool when the power is held by them. So, yeah, that's basically the story in short. It's not anything major. I mean, personally, I'm against YouTube, their sort of demonetization that they've been doing in the first place. I guess it's better if it's more open. Like if an advertiser chooses not to advertise, then okay, that's their choice. But generally, if you're on YouTube, you can always find some people to be your sponsors. That's not really a problem. But for whatever reason, people have been getting demonetized. And at first, when we were learning about it, it was people that basically did a lot of anti-SJW, anti-feminist, maybe pro men's rights, that kind of stuff in terms of content. And SJWs didn't care. They said, well, you act like a dick online and you get what you deserve or whatever. But now the YouTube algorithm also is affecting them, even though they think that they're on the right side of history and their opinions are the correct ones. And so now they're upset and they think that it should change. Or at the very least, the standard should not be held against them and only for the people that they oppose. So, anybody have any thoughts on this story at all? Or were you guys not listening? Was I just talking to myself? Are you there?
I thought I was listening, but
okay.
I'm not really sure what. Can you sum it up?
To sum up, YouTube has an algorithm or something they put in their system that is demonetizing people's YouTube accounts, so they're not making the money, the ad revenue that they were. And these
is it like the old one or a new one?
This is like the one that's more recent. I think it was like in the last few weeks, right? And so it was affecting people like Computing Forever. It was affecting Chris Raygun. It was affecting a couple of these guys that make either alternative media content, or they make anti-social justice content, or they make pro-MRA stuff, or maybe they're libertarians or anarcho-capitalists or whatever. And so they were getting demonetized, and social justice warriors, who they often find themselves at odds with, did not care. In fact, they called it justice. They said, well, this is what you get, right? You deserve this because you're bad people. Like Steve Shives would say that, right? But now, the same algorithm that YouTube put in is affecting, it also turns out that it's affecting LGBT activist, social justice activist YouTube channels as well. And now the social justice warriors have a problem with it. They're the ones that are saying, well, this shouldn't happen to us, or it shouldn't happen at all. And that basically what you're looking at is essentially a nonpartisan device, which is this algorithm, I guess we'll call it for lack of a better term, is affecting people on both sides of the discussion. And SJWs are unhappy with it. And the main reason why this is an important difference is, in many cases, at least the ones that I know of, The people on the anti-SJW side that did not like this did not like it in principle. Not because it was targeting them. They assumed that it wasn't, like, they were generally not important enough that it would be something that was targeting them, but they were basically like, on principle, I don't like this because this is a bad precedent that's being set. But when it affected SJWs, they did not dislike it on principle, because originally they were okay with it, but when it turned out it was affecting them, they disliked it because it affected them. And so there's a difference between disliking something because, you know, for example, you could be for due process, even if you're not someone who is currently, you know, under the gun or finding yourself in a legal battle and, you know, where you're being accused of something you didn't do. But you could be in favor of due process on principle just because you think it's a good idea, or freedom of speech or whatever. Even if some of the words that people are fighting to be able to say, you don't have a problem either using or not using. You don't have a problem with it. However, you think the principle is important. And then there are people who are against it, not because there's a principle, but because they want to live the way they want to. They want their life to be comfortable. So there, you get what I'm coming from? There's like a selfish version, and then there's a principle version. So that's where I think the reason why this is worth pointing out.
No, absolutely. I mean, you have the, you know, aware adult, and then you have the child who's just running around having a freaking temper tantrum. I don't even know if it's fair to children to call them children. But they are, it's extraordinary. It's the whole conversation with the political correctness, with the freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. They don't care about it. They just want to be the only ones to speak, and what they say is okay, and everybody should be a feminist, and everybody should think what I do, like I think. And that should be okay. But when people, you know, when it affects them, it doesn't work. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wanted to point that out because when I try to look at a given issue, when I'm looking at an argument about, for example, we'll use freedom of speech, it's easy and people get it, I try to think of it in terms of, would limiting speech be well, in what ways is this bad? And I try to look at it from the perspective of the principle itself. So if I am for it, if I say, well, I think, like, personally, I'm a freedom of speech absolutist. I think that you should be able to say anything. And the only time that the line should be drawn is when someone acts in a violent way towards someone else. But that's not speech anymore. That's violence. So I'm okay with saying anything. I don't care. But I am for that on principle, not because I want to be able to say whatever I want, because I'm going to choose whether or not I want to say something. So, but because I think that it is the most, I think it's just the most principled way to approach it. If you start putting any limits on it, like some people say, well, what about hate speech? Or what about threats of violence? Or what about calls to action? Exactly. Well, then I have to say, well, how are we defining our terms here? Because if you start to go down this road where you're basically like, well, I limit it to things like shouting fire in a crowded theater, then you have to start asking yourself questions like, okay, so what constitutes, like, there will be situations that will come up where whether or not this is a call to violence or a call to action will be called into question, because it's going to sit in the gray area. No matter how clean you think the line is, there's a gray area, and I think that that's where things get muddy. Now, granted, these things may not come up often, which is why I say I won't worry about whether or not it applies to me, because I'm looking at it as a principle, and then I'm deciding personally where I sit on the spectrum in terms of what I'm willing to say, right? So I think that approaching it that way is the best way, because you're not looking for your own best interests. You're just looking at the principle in general. You're just basically saying, you know what, if I may be impacted negatively from this, but I think the principle is more important than how I am affected or how it affects me. So that's where I'm coming from. And when I'm talking to people about ideas like this, and I'm talking about, like, okay, well, what do you think about, you know, where do you stand on the abortion discussion? I'm gonna try to approach it from a place of principles before anything else. I'll try my best to do that, and that doesn't mean that I don't have my own opinion, but I try to keep the principle separate from that. And if someone asks me my opinion, then I'll give it. But if somebody says, you know, like, what do you think about this as a general principle, then I'll speak to it in that way. I think that it's a very important distinction, especially when you're talking to people that you disagree with, especially people like authoritarians, which are often where SJWs fall. I'm not saying that people on the right don't do it. There obviously are authoritarians there. And you have to argue with both of them the same way, from principles. And then just go from there, That's the best way to do it. So I think this is a good thing to think about. Now, if you guys in the chat disagree, you can put a comment in there, tell me whatever. I'm open to it. Same thing with you, Crystal and Anna. You can tell me I'm full of shit if you want.
No, how I feel about free speech is the exact same way. I feel that regardless of what a person says, they should have the freedom to do it. I don't believe in hate speech. I believe that is a PC term that can be used loosely to tell people you hurt my feelings and I don't like it. Like, I am a sovereign being. I can choose if a person decides to speak a certain way, I don't have to have them as a best friend. But that doesn't mean I would not stand for their right to do so. I had a person say to me when I was having this conversation with them, I said, I stand for all free speech and I don't believe in hate speech. And of course they got nasty and they're like, well, what if I said you were a nigger that needs to be hung by a tree? And I'm like, oh, well, interesting how that went there so quickly. But I'm like, well, I don't have to like it, but I will stand for your right to say it because that's what freedom of speech is. When it comes down to the US Constitution or my feelings are not more important. And again, I don't have to have you in my circle. I don't have to associate with you. That is my choice. That is my power to do so. But to take away your freedom to speak how you choose to speak would be ridiculous. And it also takes away my freedom. So no, I would not. I don't believe in hate speech because that's a slippery slope. And what they don't realize is that's a snowball to hell. Because then I said, if I say that you saying that to me is hate speech, I can suddenly say that those words are illegal. Then I can say that you deserve to go to jail for saying those words. And then it turns into this whole, and that's not what this country was built on. We have, the US Constitution is there for a freaking reason. My feelings are irrelevant when it comes to the freedom of myself in this country. That doesn't make it, your feelings are just not more important than the US Constitution.
Right. Okay. I think Anna was about to say something. I don't know, but...
I was gonna say that. No, I was just gonna say that I definitely call you on your shit all the time. So don't worry about that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Safer.
You shouldn't be allowed to, though. I think I'm gonna change my mind on this whole freedom of speech thing. Anyway, so that's it for our stories, guys. Thanks for joining us on the show. Tell us what you think about the stories. Also, we're gonna go on to do the after show with our bonus story. It's the return of Jessica Valenti because we haven't seen her in a while. I remember last time we heard from her. I believe she said she missed catcalling. So now that she's back on, on full swing.
It's been a minute since we've seen Jessica.
Yeah, we haven't seen Jessica Valenti and her male tears in a while, but she has returned. We will be discussing this article. Trump did to Merkel what men do to women all the time. And I was wondering when that's going to come up, which, by the way, I just like to say, as much as I sometimes think that there should be, never mind, I'm not going to say that because it's going to be taken out of context. Save it for the after show. Keep them drooling. Keep them drooling. We can talk about it in the after show. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to go, and if you want to become a patron, join us on the after show. They're always huge. Consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio.
Our shows are tremendous. They're tremendous.
The tremendous shows, the great shows. We have the best shows, and especially the after shows. Believe me, folks. Believe me. So we'll see you guys on the after show. Thanks for joining us, and thank you, CIA, for making sure that we didn't say anything we weren't supposed to. And thank you to the fans. And we'll see you on the next Pussycat Cast.